Joan J. Doyle, welcome to my channel. I just slammed my hand in the bathroom door and I don't know if this will show up very well on camera, but you can actually see where it happened. It is quite sore, but aside from general incompetence and inability to perform basic tasks, the plan for today is to do a tag video. So this is going to be the Christmas Carol book tag. I will leave a link down in the description to the original creators video as well as a list of the prompts. So let us get on with it. So I can take some painkillers. Prompt the first, The Ghost of Christmas Past, a book that was a childhood favourite. Picking a childhood favourite is difficult for me, one because I don't believe in favourites, but two because I couldn't read. I didn't figure out how to read until right before I started high school. I wasn't completely illiterate, but there was an awful lot of just kind of faking it. I don't think I actually read a book cover to cover until I was 12, and even then it was a book aimed at 8-year-olds. But then by the time I was 13 going 14, I was onto adult fiction. So very, very slow, very difficult to identify progress for a long time, and then a massive jump in skill level. But anyway, the point is, I didn't read as a child, so I don't have childhood favourites. So I do have a book, but I liked it for the pictures because I couldn't read it. I think anyone who knows me really well and knows my history of writing projects will not be surprised that a book on vampires was a favourite from my childhood, because I've been writing a vampire story for more than half my life now. So I may not have been able to read it, but potentially you could argue that it was influential. I don't know that it actually was, but it's a thought. Prompt 2, The Ghost of Christmas Present, a recent book that you think will become one of your all-time favourites. The Library of the Unwritten. I have already interrupted a writing-related video to gush about this book because I was so enthralled by it. This is about a library in hell where all books which were never written are kept, along with artwork which was never created. It is an immense collection. It has books by people who have been long gone for thousands of years, books by people who have yet to be born. All never written books are in this library. So if an author is still alive, there's a possibility that the book could become written, but if they die, then the book remains in the library forever. And the books can manifest as a character from within the book and run around as a person that you can interact with. It is so good. If you have any tolerance for adventure, read this book. I was going to say, like, all writers should read it, but you know, let's not be too generous. If you're not into fantasy, probably not your cup of tea, but if you are a writer who likes fantasy, oh my god, read it. It's amazing. I can't wait to get the next two. Prompt 3, The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, a book coming out next year that you're the most excited about. I don't really pay attention to what books are coming unless it's a continuation of a series. To my knowledge, all the series that I'm currently working on, the books are already out. I just haven't actually bought them or read them. So yeah, I don't really pay attention to that, so we're just going to skip on to number 4, Bar Humbug, a book that everyone else loves that you just can't stand. I have 2. Straight from the unhaul pile, Alice in Wonderland. I've recently ranted about this book, but basically I am such a grumpy and hateful old lady that I don't like child protagonists, particularly when they are confident or opinionated. So yeah, really didn't like that one. And on the other end of the scale, I have Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. I got this when it was first released in 2015, which is why I've got such a big, chunky, hard-covered version of it. I would say in excess of 90% probably of my scientist friends have read this book and given it glowing, enthusiastic reviews. I, on the other hand, think it is really, really boring. Not because the content is bad per se, like you can see I've, bookmarked stuff that I thought was interesting, but it's just so excessively over-explained. Most of the things which are explained in the course of an entire chapter really only needed one page. I think this book could have been perhaps a third of its length if the author had just cut back on the extensive explanation and use of example after example after example to illustrate the same idea. In fact, this book has been such a struggle to get through. Having bought it in 2015, I still have 4 pages to go. I haven't actually finished it. My aim has been to get it finished this year because I realised I was getting close, but I think that gives you an idea of how dull it is. But obviously I'm the weirdo on that one. Prompt 5, I'm assuming this is pronounced Bob Cratchit, I could be wrong. An old dependable that you always recommend. There is no singular recommendation for everyone because everyone is so different, and I can't narrow it down to like one book that I'd recommend for everybody. So, my top 6 for young adult LGBT content, love Simon. For poetry, particularly as relevant to plus size, biracial, American and single woman topics, Nothing Is Okay. For unusual and insightful narrative of the mind or perspective of someone who has autism, obviously it's going to be The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, which is a very long title that I had to double check in the middle of. For confronting, jarring, unusual perspective, Fight Club. Not to be recommended for the plot twist because it's not really a twist in the book, only in the movie. For American history, first person plural narrator and an insight to a part of American history that's not commonly discussed, a Buddha in the Attic. And finally, for just general sci-fi adventure kind of thing, Ready Player One. Prompt 6, Tiny Tim, an underhyped book that you think deserves more love. Under the Skin. I have only ever seen one other person recommend this book, and people I talk to about it have never heard of it. But it is probably one of my all-time favourites. Conversely, it's also my most hated movie of all time, I'm pretty sure. So avoid the movie like the plague, but the book is excellent. You have no idea what this book is about when you start reading it. It is a sci-fi, but when you start reading it, it's just a woman driving around picking up hitchhikers, specifically male hitchhikers who are muscular. She doesn't want anyone who's fat or overly thin. She doesn't like puffer jackets because they mislead her, and she is so dedicated to this criteria that she'll drive past a hitchhiker and then drive down the road and do a U-turn, come back and check them out a second time before again going past, doing a U-turn and coming back and picking them up. It talks about how she misses her old car because it was big enough that she could fit a mattress in the back, and she's very sort of desperate and high adrenaline about this search for a hitchhiker. So you have certain assumptions about what she's doing, and those assumptions are wrong. Prompt 7. Today, why it's Christmas Day. What's a book that always gets you in the mood for Christmas? None. Because I didn't read as a child, I don't have a nostalgic book that I kind of think back on, so there's nothing for me to kind of pick up and reread to get into the Christmas spirit. But also, aside from my own lack of reading skills as a child, New Zealand's Christmas is in the height of summer. It isn't, you know, sit somewhere cozy with a hot drink and read a book weather. It's run outside and prance around in the sprinklers weather. So I think there are fewer opportunities in general for New Zealanders to kind of connect with a book during Christmas because it's not the right season for it. Obviously it's slightly different if you're a dedicated bookworm, but for the average person it's not the most reading of seasons. That being said, I do have a treasury of Christmas stories that was given to me by my grandmother, which reminds me of Christmas when I see it, but I suspect I have read less than half of this because I was not able to read at the time that I received this as a gift. However, I have always, God, talking today is really hard. I've always appreciated that the artwork is kind of nice. Like, I like all the little borders and page break decorations. But yeah, haven't read about half of it. And the final prompt is to tag some people. I tag anyone who wants to do this video. And with that, we've come to a close. My hand is still quite sore, so definitely time for some painkillers. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!